Hello, this is a Brave Knight Mercenary spotlight on Galania. Galania is a 5-star support and is only obtainable by playing the Gate of Chaos. Both her and her companion cannot be rolled in the gacha and must be purchased in the ancient store in the Gate of Chaos. You get ancient crystals which you can exchange for Galania, her companion, and Galania soul gears. Galania is a psychopath nurse and scientist who worked under Velfern with the goal of creating an immortal army of monsters. However, her progress was slow and stagnant, and Velfern began to lose expectations of her. She grew desperate to get results and decided to enlist in Obscurus Octo as she saw as an opportunity to push her research further. With the power of the ancient magic stones provided by the Obscurus Octos, she traded her memories for power. However, her ambition to dissect every living thing and create an army of immortal monsters is still as powerful as ever. Galania's companion is Anila. Anila is an alchemist who could identify how much time people had left to live. She was nicknamed the Death Sentence as a result, and Velfern found value in her. She volunteered for the Obscurus Octos and assisted Galania in observing how much time was actually granted by Galania's supposed immortal treatment. I'll briefly go over Galania's skills, gameplay style, and provide some of my opinions on her. I won't be going over the details of her skills, but just the general parts of it. I linked the Brave Knight Encyclopedia in the video description where you can easily read on her stats and skill values. Galania's first skill is Immortal Drug Bestowal. This is Galania's signature skill. She applies a buff onto her allies that lasts for quite a while. This buff is categorized as a special buff and is removable using nullifiers. This buff prevents allies from dying and puts them exactly at 1 HP instead. If you're familiar with the Focus Sash item in the Pokemon games, it's pretty much exactly that. Should an ally receive lethal damage and be saved by the Immortal Drug, they receive Immortal for 1 turn, which is a guard that prevents them from receiving any further damage. This prevents multi-hitters from being able to kill a unit and then immediately kill them afterwards after they hang on to 1 life. Upon being saved by the Immortal Drug, the unit also receives the Immortal Drug Prohibition for 28 turn, which prevents them from being able to receive the Immortal Drug again. This makes it so that the same unit cannot simply cheat death every round. Immortal Drugs takes priority over Resurrection buffs, so Lucius and Frisia with Galania's buff will be left at 1 HP if they receive a fatal hit, and any damage afterwards will trigger the Resurrection. This also applies for Belia buffed units. Lastly, units with self-destruct mechanics will not benefit from Galania's buff. Units like Wiggle and Octavia will still die after their attack, and units with suicide counters that can receive Galania's buff, like Choco, will still die if he's attacked. Galania's second skill is Suspicious Drug. This is one of Galania's main offensive stat enhancement buffs, but it has some interesting mechanics. Whenever Galania's ally has their immortality effect activated, Galania herself receives a stack of Suspicious Drug for 48 turns. Suspicious Drug cannot be removed and is stackable. Suspicious Drug itself does not do anything, but when she buffs her allies, she will apply a stackable crit damage boost stat enhancement for each stack of Suspicious Drug on herself. Let me show you an example. In this clip, I had Galania buff a cluster of allies. Not counting Dalby, there are 4 other units who have the Immortal Drug on them. As the fight progresses, you can see them gradually survive death. With each unit successfully surviving death, Galania gets 1 stack of Suspicious Drug. After 4 of the allies managed to survive the lethal hits and died afterwards, Galania ended up with 4 stacks of Suspicious Drugs. In the beginning of round 3, Galania buffed Dalby. As you can see, 4 brand new crit damage boost buffs are on her. Also look at that crit damage stat. This allows Galania to provide some pretty crazy damage boosts in situational circumstances as the fight progresses. Also a thing to note, while the Suspicious Drug is unremovable, the stat enhancement crit damage boost that she applies on her allies is removable. If a buffed unit attacks a unit with a curse counter, they will have their stat enhancement removed prior to damage calculation. It can also be removed with nullifiers and other stat enhancement removal skills. Galania's third skill is Attack Boost Bestowal. Galania boosts the attack of the allies that she buffs. This is a removable stat enhancement that does not stack. At plus 9 and above, she also increases allies' crit rate as well. Galania's awakening skill is DOT Immunity Bestowal. Galania provides DOT immunity to her allies for a set amount of turns. At plus 11 and above, the DOT immunity also comes with an incoming damage reduction component. The DOT immunity can be applied even if a unit has buff prohibition, and it is unremovable. However, the damage reduction aspect is separate and can be removed. Galania is a very interesting support that can prevent her allies from dying should they receive lethal damage. The ability to cheat death may seem familiar with prior units like Lucius and Belia, but Galania being able to provide it for everyone is quite new. She essentially is the Oprah Winfrey of immortality. Galania allows her allies to survive and live through their attack. In situations where allies run into an enemy with a lethal counter, they can cheat death for that turn. Similarly, if they receive a lethal hit by being hit, they can also cheat death. If you played prior games with this kind of mechanic, then you probably understand how useful and strong it can be. Galania's offensive buffs have the potential to be strong too. Her buff values are decent as it is right from the start, but as her allies begin dodging death due to her immortality buff, her offensive buffs also grow in power as well. DOT immunity is a nice thing to have, although it's mostly just meant for allies to survive units like Seto or Christina and not have a DOT kill them right after they reach 1 HP. Regardless, this is a nice touch and it's really fortunate that Galania provides this. Galania herself is incredibly fragile, however. Her HP almost rivals that of Stella's in terms of how low it is, and she has no defensive skills or defensive capabilities. I'll go over what Galania counters. Galania's most apparent usage is to allow her allies to survive hitting Seto. For example, Christina is a unit that can attack Seto only once before she dies to him, but Galania allows Christina to cheat death on the turn that she attacks and fire all 5 of her shots onto him, which will one-shot Seto while Christina survives with 1 health. Similarly, Galania allows Alec to hit Seto and kill him without having to die himself. Her DOT that she provides to allies also ensures that Seto's fire counter doesn't apply burn onto your allies that hit Seto, which can kill them after the turn they attack when they are left with 1 HP. Galania can also buff a defensive taunter to have them survive Ventana. Most taunters like Bane and Granhilder are pretty difficult to kill, but Ventana and Levia can one-shot them with relative ease. Galania can help them survive both of them in that regard. Galania also counters Larkus, as Larkus needs his attacker to die to get Death Guard, but to be fair, pretty much everything counters Larkus. Galania otherwise is a pretty large generalist, and mostly there to enforce strategies rather than to counter specific units. I'll go over some Galania counters now. Nullifiers, especially ones that occur before a normal attack, are hands down the best options against Galania. Yuri, Kyria, Nartis, and Balze are major ones. These units can remove Galania's immortal drug prior to attacking so that once their normal attack is calculated, the enemy could die normally. Arcan, Elise, Mammonier, Ebony, and Baltor are other methods of nullifiers as well. Curse counters with stat enhancement strips prevent Galania's buff units from taking advantage of her buffs. All of Galania's offensive stat enhancements are removable, meaning that even if she applies a lot of stacks of her buffs onto a unit, that unit will not get to use any of it if they attack something like Levia, Celia, or Cecilia. Alec can actually deal with Galania buff units pretty well. If Alec kills a unit with his normal attack, or the non-direct damage additional damage, the unit will be in the immortal state and have the immortal guard. However, Alec's direct damage kicks in afterwards and can kill the unit anyways. Similarly, Jin can still kill Galania buffed Alec, because if Jin reflects Alec's additional damage back to him, then Jin's reflected direct damage will also kill Alec through his own immortal guard. The only way to mitigate this is to make sure Alec also has 100% defense with something like Veronia or Hypatia, so that only the direct damage is what kills himself. So some synergies with Galania. Galania enabling her allies to live works well with many warriors who are prone to dying to various enemy counters. She's very good with Alec, Christina, Orfina, Kyria, Taylor, Gunther, Eden, and many more. Pretty much any warrior is likely to appreciate her buff. As I said earlier, she can also give your tanks one more shot to live, such as Bane and Granhilder. Combined with a healer like Floria, and you can create a pretty sticky composition. Speaking of sticky, Belieth can lead to some pretty funny interactions where units just never seem to really stay dead. Galania can also be useful in keeping valuable and priority targets alive. Galania and Sola compositions allow units like Levia, Celia, Nartis, and Sola herself to stay alive. Granhilder is also one of the more unique characters for Galania in that Granhilder cannot be nullified, so you can always count on good old Granhilder to at least survive one attack. Okay, so for my opinion, Galania is a very interesting unit. She enables a lot of cool things that can drastically both increase the durability of her composition and its offensive abilities as well. Her buffs have a lot of utility and provide a new fresh air of viability to various units that had issues dealing with Seto before. She also further makes the rich even more rich by making Alec even better. She's often described as a budget Belieth, but her ability has better potential than Belieth, as the unit can still actually attack in the rare circumstance that they don't die again. This isn't to say that Galania is better than Belieth, as Belieth has a lot of other strong distinctions, but a unit with one life that could potentially attack again is generally stronger than a skeleton. Galania's primary weakness is that all of her offensive buffs are easy to remove, and Nullifier can absolutely wreck her. This is only going to be more problematic once Mammonier and Valze receive their Octo Companion patch. I imagine both Valze and Mammo will still retain their Nullifier mechanics after the Octo patch at least, but if they don't, then that's a small win for Galania. Galania is useful in all content, but she shines the most in Guild War and Underground Arena. Galania is a very powerful Guild War unit because you can create premeditated forms where you can tuck her out of harm's way and utilize powerful warriors without fear of them dying the moment they attack, which allows you to milk more value for the units that you intend to use so long as you can keep them alive after they survive the first lethal hit. Similarly, Galania is good for Underground Arena as well, as it allows you to try out more variations of openings if you end up going first. You can finally start off with something like Orfina and don't have to worry about your opponent just casually dropping Settle in that lane and laugh at you. She is also good in any content in general. Galania's mechanics lend herself to being very versatile. So should you invest in Galania? Yes, absolutely. She is technically free to obtain. Just play the Gate of Chaos Season 2 and buy her with the ancient stones you accumulate. I uploaded 2 guides on my channel on how to approach this, so you can refer to those if you don't quite understand the gimmick of the dungeon. Galania is already functional at +0, but her limited support range only makes her useful in line-based formations. +10 is kind of a stretch, but the plus tile range will give you more flexibility in positioning. Anything beyond that is far from necessary. She also absolutely does not need her +15, so if it comes down to it, prioritizing getting Galania first and use your ancient coins to buy companions. Buy her soul gear last with your remaining ancient stones. Overall, Galania is a pretty cool character that enables a lot of cool and interesting new things. She's free too, also bonus points if you like cowgirls. Thanks for watching my Galania Mercenary Spotlight, hope you find it helpful. Check out my Gate of Chaos Season 2 guide to help you beat the dungeon and obtain Galania for free, or at least free in the sense where you don't have to suffer against the gacha to obtain her.